Hello guys, I'm really glad to see you on our crypto YouTube channel, and today we will speak with Dewdney. It's a representative of NFT3. NFT3 is the first unified virtual identity network for Web3. So Dylan, nice to see you. How are you today?
Hey, I'm really great, thank you. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, everything is okay.
Okay. Yeah.
That's
Good.
great. So, Rochelle, please, you're welcome. Start asking question, and we will get some advantages and key features of NFT3.
Yes, I would definitely love to be the first one right now because I'm excited. So let's dive right in, Dylan. Decentralized identity, NFT3. What is NFT3 all about, and like what are the pain points that does it aim to solve in Web3?
Yeah. So the big, I guess the big vision is that as time goes on and as we transition from Web 2 to Web 3, what that means, this transition, what it represents is a transition from the ability of platforms to kind of coordinate individuals and sort of resell the information about individuals to advertisers, and then this becomes a way to better sell products. And this is like the basis of Web 2, right? This is the basis of the internet. The entire business model of the internet is predicated on advertising, right? And more broadly, the architecture of Web 2 is sort of like platform based, right? So, if we look at the beginning of the internet, it was actually more decentralized, and it was actually more sort of had this P2P orientation between people. So, ARPANET and DARPANET, when it was first operating, it was like these nodes between academic circles, right? As time went on, this is actually kind of like, it took a fair amount of resources, a fair amount of expertise to be able to get into the internet. And as time goes on, we had these, great sort of UI UX layers that developed on top of the internet over time. And it started, very, very in a small kind of like ways, where we had dial-up, and then we had Prodigy, and then we had Netscape, and then we had this real sort of like building and iteration of the beautiful UX UI experiences on Web 2. Now, the problem with that was that all of the UX UI, all of the platform basis of Web 2 was all kind of filtering down through these, handful eventually of centralized companies. And they represent the so-called FANG companies, Facebook, Amazon, Google, etc. And so when we think about the transition of Web 2 to Web 3, what we're talking about is in fact like a reversion back to sort of the first fundamental aspects of what Web 1 was, which is this more like sort of decentralized orientation, P2P orientation between individuals. And it's only possible because we have in the last, really in the last 5 years, I would say, laid down very, very good basis for a value transfer layer on the internet, which we have come to now call blockchain, crypto, DeFi, etc. Where identity and where NFT3 comes into this whole picture is that we still have some kinks to work out in order for us to kind of like achieve this vision of like a decentralized internet, and individuals sort of capturing some of the value that is already captured by individuals in Web, or created by individuals in Web 2. So right now, you and me, like, and anybody has a price attached and a value attached to them just by existing on the internet. There's value created. We're just not really capturing it. I don't propose that in the Web3, picture that individuals will probably end up capturing 100% of the value that is now captured by FANG companies, because I think that service providers provide a lot of value. But I do think that we're going to be able to probably get some of that value back to us in this new orientation of the internet. And part of that picture is being able to control and own rather than rent your identity. Right now, we sort of like rent our identity. We don't actually own it or control it. And I think that this is going to be this like key piece of how this develops. And we are just, we're just one, I hope we're a significant player, but we're one player working on this. It's an important problem. And if we can solve it, well, that'll be great, because we will have this new sort of evolution of what it means to be a Web3 denizen, and what it means to be human, because it all comes down to an interoperation between real life stuff and web stuff, and they exist in synergy, right? I don't like, if you need to know something in real life, often you're looking on your phone, right? And so there's real integration between these two things. And that's at the heart of the technology for NFT3, is we do believe that there's going to be this nice, efficient means by which off-chain information and on-chain information and individuals custodying to some extent that information through an identity layer, it'll all interoperate together in these really, really interesting ways. And I don't want to I probably am answering further questions, so I'll just stop it there. And then I can get into maybe some other stuff that's exciting. And you can ask another question.
Yeah, that's great. So, it's quite popular topic in a crypto field, in a crypto society, is metaverse. And in your project, you're trying to implement DID, decentralized identifier. How about MetaID? What it is and how it will help the Web3 and the metaverse? How we can comment it on? What do you think about it?
Yeah, so the oldest sort of concept or term in this like picture is the term self-sovereign identity. Yeah. So self-sovereign identity has been a narrative that's been pretty strong for quite a long time. And why not? Like, it's a great narrative, because why would I not want to have sovereignty over my own identity? And there are aspects of that are political and have to do with the state, and I think that's why, and although I think that NFT3, someone having an NFT3 account or NFT3 did will be tantamount with the self-sovereign ID and SSID. I don't think that SSID really captures the sufficiently captures what we're sort of like trying to get to. And so we've started to use this term of meta identity or MetaID, sort of as an extension of this idea of decentralized identity. And really what that means is that it's a new way of thinking about one's identity. So right now, we think about our identity in terms of PII typically, or a government issued ID, or personally, I'm Dewdney. I live in Toronto. My primary residence is Toronto. I'm 41 years old. Blah 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 blah. Right, but also, and this is true for many people, but also we have these sort of like web identities that may be pseudonymous, anonymous. They may be PII oriented. But the problem with all of that is that, identity like that is not custodied by the person who owns, is the arbiter of that identity, or whatever they accrue about that identity, good or bad. And this presents, I think, problems at the individual level, but certainly it presents opportunities when we start to think about the capacity for people to accrue information on-chain or off-chain through verifiable credential attestations, but on-chain through, for example, many people in crypto have a lot of wallets in a lot of places and a lot of different things. If we can tie those to a single unique identifier, then we can sort of better leverage this stuff. On the part of the individual, where we can maybe spit out a reputational score, but also on the part of the projects that may be wanting to get in touch with them. This goes back to the answer to the first question, which is, what is this about? Why are we doing it? Which is that, we still need to be able to know information about people, and people still want information to be known about them. So the idea that the identity layer or the major like UX UI layer of blockchain and crypto would be reducible only to an ENS or an Ethereum wallet address or a Bitcoin wallet address or whatever, or it's not going to work. So a unified identity layer, the unification, is probably going to happen among a lot of different players. But our hope is that we kind of get DIDs to be used through adoption, and adoption would mean some sort of product orientation to what we're coming out with. But anyway, meta identity is simply the identity that you would create as a result of living your life, your Web3 life, what you would normally do. We just filtered this all down to a single decentralized identifier. And you control it. We stake some value underneath it, so it's not just random people creating DIDs, or spoof generated, bot generated, spoof DIDs. Like, there needs to be something else tied to the picture, because it doesn't just take DIDs. It takes DIDs. It takes verifiable claim or credential attestations in the long-term picture. And it also takes the ability to accrue reputation over time, and also to stake some amount of value with it. And that's where the NFT component comes into play, because there's these neat utilities for NFT where we can stake into them, and we can also accrue reputational indicators or badging over time. So you could issue, you could do a verifiable credential attestation that goes to the DID, and then the DID, we can issue, for example, an NFT associated with that verifiable claim attestation that becomes part of a NFT gated access to XYZ. We can do all sorts of stuff. That's really, really neat when it comes to this. Is that sufficient?
Yeah, that's great.
Early, yes, definitely. I mean, now that we have, an overview of what NFT3 does, what the IDs are, what is a MetaID, and I definitely agree when you said earlier that evolution is rapidly changing, problems a lot are evolving, and it's actually quite a cool concept to control and own your identity. That's what you said, which I really would be, I would support it to the max, and rather than renting our information online, as you said. Now, what is an ideal scenario when NFT3 is, fully integrated into the market? Like, what do you see it doing, and then what people are making use of it?
Yeah. So I think overall, it's going, like, the biggest problem it solves in some ways is hopefully in the 3-4 years from now, I hope this is the case, is that you're solving a basic computer science problem, which is that anything a human can do, a bot can do, which actually leads to, it's led to some really, huge inefficiencies within Web 2, right? Where billions and billions of dollars are spent every year on this kind of like cat and mouse game, certainly on the side of, like, if you're looking into things like SSP and DSP stuff for advertising on the internet and SEO optimization, blah, 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 you don't actually know that you're hitting your target. And there are all these like intermediaries that are involved in this basic inefficiency, which is reducible or reductive to a computer science problem, which is like a Turing problem, which is like bots can kind of do whatever humans can do on the internet, right? But maybe if you have this kind of if you have an identifier associated, in this case, a decentralized identifier associated with a constellation of different attributes, parameters, indicators, which would include things like number of, wallets associated, a reputational score. We can spit out a reputational score on these parameters, and we can start to get this really nice idea of realness, right? And not only will we hopefully get an idea of realness, but we'll get an idea of, I hesitate to use this word, but I suppose it's appropriate, goodness, right? Yeah. Whether or not like they are a good actor in certain aspects, right? And this is dynamic. So, like from the DeFi oriented application layer, like we can think about the use case of, or the potential to be able to discover getting closer to the the holy grail of under collateralization and DeFi loan arrangements and things like that. Because right now DeFi is completely 100% predicated on over collateralization, and I don't have to tell you that if I had the money, I wouldn't need it, right? So this is the basis. Yeah. The basis of loan arrangements is not having the money, right? And not having the money, but saying, well, I got a good job. I had this. Blah, 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 blah. I'm taking out a student loan to become a doctor. So trust me, I'm going to get the money, right? I mean, that's it. Real life situation of loan arrangements. If we can unlock, that part of the situation through a better assessment of credit risk worthiness via, a combination of on-chain information, some attestation, say Harvard says, you have, is attesting that you have a degree or a medical degree from them. I'm certain that over time, we're going to get to these really nice, trustworthy levels at the application layer. So the people who are providing the loans that are getting closer to 100 and maybe below 100 for collateralization, they're going to start saying, okay, this seems to be working. I seem to not be getting screwed by any of this stuff. And I can depend on the robustness or the actuarial science behind my understanding of these reputational scores. That's one aspect, okay? Other aspects of this are also truly exciting, and I think our lead investor Animoca was more excited about this aspect, which was the ability for across. So one I want to dispel or like break a myth that some people may have that in these metaverses we're able to like just have like an NFT. Going from one metaverse to the other, or one, some item that is NFT based, like blah, 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 like, and we're going to be able to like swing the same sword in metaverse 1 as metaverse 2. It's actually that's, if it happens at all, that's actually extremely far away, because I don't have to tell you that you can't play chess with a Go piece. Like you can't take the Go board piece and put it on a chess board and play the same game. Right? You can't. So this is like sort of the idea that people have. It's not going to work. But what you can do is you can have an identifier associated with the on-chain actions, right, or of the game, or whatever data that we can accrue based on So if you swing the sword 1,000 times, beat the legendary dragon. We can accrue that information, and we can do, and that platform can do a verifiable credential attestation that says you did this. Now, Metaverse 2 can have that information and say, oh, okay, like they beat the crazy dragon. That's a big deal. I'd like to attract them to my metaverse and, and give them some benefit as a result. So this is the identity layer is actually where things, in my view, are going to become integrated, rather than this idea that this like Ready Player One interoperable metaverses, like that is some time off. If I think it happens at all, maybe there's some situation where it does happen, but I think it would be very difficult, because each of these metaverses are predicated on a different set of rules, the same way that a chessboard is predicated on a different set of rules than a Go board. So I think that's another aspect, the ability to share and have these neat efficiencies of information between metaverses, and it's custodied by the individual, so they can sign off cryptographically whether or not they want someone to have access to their, I don't know, this is not the best analogy, but it's almost like cookies for identity, like follow their DID, right? If they want to do that, that's fine, they can do that, right? But Animoco is interested in this because right now there's a bunch of disparate, it's all disparate and it's all sort of unconnected. And this could be this kind of like cool way to be able to connect all of this stuff up. I kind of went backwards, but more near-term solutions are, you can do things like traveling KYC requirements. So you could do a KYC proof of attestation tied to a DID, and then you could maybe travel those requirements across different contexts, or provide easy onboarding and less friction into different IDOs, or integrate, or becoming in a DEX. Like maybe there's this neat way we could do KYC sort of like hybrid model of like a KYC DEX, although you never really have to be KYC'd and they never custody the KYC, and it's just a proof of attestation from some other third party that's attached to your DID. Then even more near term, and which will be our MVP because it's really easy to execute on, is this idea of validated airdropping. So what we'll do with that is we'll be able to have a higher assurance that if that a project is not, because the big problem is projects will airdrop, they're airdropping, we don't know the percentages, but I think they're pretty high to bot generated wallet addresses, right? So people who are smart enough are able to sort of able to hack through ideas about airdropping, right? And if you're a project that wants to airdrop to real users, then we can do that. And on the other side, it's like, why do I care? Again, this is like, you're saying, really excited about self-sovereign identity and owning your identity and having custody of that. I agree, I'm excited too. But most people won't get excited until there's a clear benefit to them from doing this.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's like the friction of doing this, going to NFT3, creating a DID, blah blah blah. Hopefully is balanced out by the benefit of now having the ability to have airdrops available to you that or some benefit available to you that you wouldn't normally have. So yeah, that's the picture there.
Oh, that's great. So let's speak about your roadmap. I mean, roadmap of NFT3, and what is the keys or the most substantial steps already done, and what can you say about it?
So our MVP testing is like happening right now, and it's going pretty well. We are mapping. We're mapping right now. And we have the ability to map from multiple addresses to a single decentralized identifier as it is. And I think, as long as everything's like the product development we don't care about, where the market sits when it comes to product development. But the TGE, is to some extent, it's like, actually to a large extent, it's extremely crucial where the broader market sits. Because you don't want to sort of like launch into a nasty bear market. It's actually a really bad idea. So like I want to get us to the optimal situation is the market stays really relatively nice, and in 2 to 3 months we're launching our product and our public sale in close succession to one another. And in terms of road mapping, we would also have at that time a number of partners integrated to start to think about what airdrops they want to do and things like that, blah blah blah. So yeah, I think the roadmap's pretty good right now. We'll be hiring a handful of more people, probably some biz dev leads, but we just got a really great product manager that I think she's working out really well. Our dev team, we may expand by 1 or 2, but we're pretty good on that too. And yeah, we just hired like three positions. So this is the name of the game in like, you know, and funding and then getting developed is really is talent is a lot of the picture. I think we're bringing on pretty decent talent. And our advisory group is like rock star-studded advisory group, I guess. So they're pretty helpful for the most part. And yeah, and I think we'll do this Ethereum implementation. And then we're gonna have, I think, an Avalanche. I think we're gonna look toward a subnet on Avalanche as well, because I really like Avalanche and how they're looking. And yeah, that's the picture so far.
That's great.
Yeah.
Happy to see that the team is growing. You know, it's really just phenomenal to see that the project is really doing its job in the market, and we really hope the best for you guys.
Thank
and
you.
Congrats on the MVP testing. Now, to end this, actually, we have a challenge for you. So we literally do this for every podcast. We would like for you, Dylan, to describe NFT in just 3 words.
Your new life.
Oof. That didn't take so much effort. I was thinking it's gonna take so much more. Thank you, amazing. It's just what it is.
Yeah.
I agree.
It's very aspirational, but I mean, I think it comes down to it's like the vision is that this is your new life, and like we got some great advantages out of Web 2. Let's not we can know everything at all times. That's amazing. Yeah. But I do think that it is time for us to sort of like evolve and for new efficiencies to be created as a result of people having better custody, like better sort of like better custody over their information, but just like, you know, like what, like, yeah, your new life, because it means that I really do believe like Web3 and blockchain and the synergy between and decentralized identity, all these things working together are going to create, like, you know, obviously people are going to get a little bit more money, if you will, or value at the end of things, I hope. But also it's like they're going to be really interesting new efficiencies that we and imaginative use cases that I can't think of yet. And the internet will, hopefully there will be these new business models that didn't exist before, you know? So like we got, I don't know, like in the past 3 or 5 years or whatever, drop shipping became a thing because there was this interesting way of disintermediating, like, what I don't exactly understand it, but because I haven't looked into it, but there's going to be stuff like that, right? Like there will be data trust that will end up being created, I assume, between individuals selling their metadata en masse if they like in decentralized data marketplaces. Like that'll be a thing. So yeah, sorry, long answer for the last one, but yeah, your new life, because it's going to mean a new life for a lot of people, I think.
So that's great. Thank you very much for this informative conversation, and it's really a pleasure for us to communicate with you. We will share this video through all our social networks and give an opportunity for our followers to get the gist of this project and to understand the main idea and how it will bring something new in our life and all the crypto followers and etc. So today we have a wonderful conversation with Dylan Dewdney, and it was an NFT3 project, and I think it brings something unique in our life and in the crypto life of all society. You know, thank you very much, Dylan, for having this conversation. It's really a pleasure for us to communicate with you.
My pleasure. And if you want to screenshot this QR code, that'll take you right to our Twitter. I don't know if it'll work with.
Wow, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Should work.
I don't think. Yeah. I feel like it doesn't work in real life, so I don't know why it'll work in,
I'll ask you to send this QR code in Telegram chat. We can share it. Yeah, that's great.
Cool. Yeah, awesome. Yeah,
so thank you very much. Cool. Have a nice time.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great.